You can say something like, it sounds like a great cause, but I really have too much on my plate. You can say, that just is not going to work for me. I'm not able to do that. I just can't help with that right now. Those are all variations of things you can say. And when you say no, don't give a reason. Hey, what's going on, Renaissance Lifers? Welcome back to Renaissance Life TV, where we take life to a whole new level. I'm your host, Lee, and today I'm excited to talk about how to say no in relationships. This topic can really apply to any type of relationship, whether it's with your friends, your family, your loved ones, your coworkers. This is a skill that you can really use to take your life to the next level. I'm going to break this down here. It really may seem like a simple or small thing that really doesn't matter, but learning how and when to say no is really one of the first steps in being able to take control of your life and being able to steer your life in the direction that you want to go. So I'll tell you a quick little story about myself. I can still remember a time in my life when I was probably around my teens and I was extremely active in an organization that I was working with. Now, the situation that I found myself in was because I was extremely active in the organization, a lot of people would come to me and ask me to do one thing or another. And at the time, it really was hard for me to say no. And typically, when you have people who are working in an organization, they're typically going to go to the people that they know are already helpful and are willing to say yes. So that was me. So there are many reasons why we might be afraid to say no. One of the reasons why I would say yes, even though I really wanted to say no, was because I felt bad that maybe no one else wanted to do it. Another reason why I didn't want to say no at the time was because I didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. The last reason, if I'm perfectly honest, is that even though I didn't want to absolutely do something, I didn't want to seem like I was someone who didn't want to be helpful, because I thought that saying no would make me seem like I didn't want to help. And a lot of times, that's the self-preservation instinct. Now, fast forwarding to today, it really is a lot easier for me to say no. And this has opened up a whole entire new strength within myself and allowed me to be able to focus on what I really want to do and pour my attention into those things. Back then, I found myself stretched way too thin. And while I was trying to help everyone and say yes to everything, I really wasn't helping many people very well. So what that means was, because I was stretched too thin, I was running around like a chicken without a head. And I was trying to do so many things that I really couldn't focus my energy or attention. And to be perfectly frank, one of the things that would happen back then was, because I would commit to so many things, there were times where I just dropped the ball and I didn't show up. So if there was something that needed to be done, I would kind of just hope that it would just go away and nobody would notice. And that was a really bad feeling. So I felt bad saying yes in the first place. And then I felt bad because I couldn't follow through on the task. And I really did want to follow through. So before I go into how to say no into relationships, I want to spend a couple seconds on why to say no in your various relationships. Now, I don't believe anyone can tell you exactly why you should say no. That's something that you have to find in yourself and know why you're saying no. Some of that has to do with your purpose and what you want to accomplish. It also has to do with your values, what standards you hold yourself to, and how you want to be perceived in the world. Who do you want to be? So when someone asks you to do something, ask yourself, is this something that aligns with who I am? Is this something that aligns with what I stand for? Does this match my standards, my values, and my morals? And that's kind of a surefire way to be able to judge and gauge whether you should say yes or no to something. There are a lot of other factors that you can consider, but that's a good starting place to be able to consider whether or not you should say no and why you should say no in the first place. Now, let's go into how to say no. So let's go into a few tips on how to say no in relationships. The first tip on how to say no in relationships is to just say no. So the big thing here is that you actually do have to say no. And there are some variations on how you can say no so that way it comes off gently. You don't have to be rude about it. You can be sincere but firm in your answer. You can say, that just is not going to work for me. I'm not able to do that. You can say something like, it sounds like a great cause, but I really have too much on my plate. I just can't help with that right now. Those are all variations of things you can say in order to say no, depending on the specific situation or the specific scenario. And when you say no, don't give a reason. This is really important here. Anytime you give a reason, it typically lessens the strength of your resolve. It lessens the strength of your answer. If you have to explain your reasoning, then generally speaking, the more you explain, the weaker your position and your resolve will become. When you spend time explaining your situation, you'll actually be giving your opponent in this situation, or the person you're saying no to, kind of fuel to be able to combat you. You're actually giving them things that they can argue against. And what will happen is generally they'll pick apart at your arguments, right? Because you probably haven't thought through them very long. And even if you have thought through them, there's always some way to undercut an argument or reasoning or rationale. So the best thing to do is not to give a reason. The best example of this is the typical salesperson. When someone tries to sell you something and you say no initially, the first thing they'll want to do is ask you, well, why? Why don't you want to do it? And what they're doing there is trying to draw you in, because once you start saying why, number one, you've engaged and you're going deeper into the thought process. You're actually considering it enough to find a reason and to explain why you don't want to buy that item. But the second reason why a salesperson will ask you why is because then they can know what they have to overcome or what they have to combat in order to get you to say yes. So the why is the most important question to getting you to change your answer from a no to a yes. Because once they know the reason for your no, then they can find a way to change your mind or convince you to say yes. So don't give a reason. Just stop at no. And if someone asks you, well, why can't you do it? And you said, really, I just can't do it at this time. You just can reiterate what you said to begin with and just stick to your position. Be sincere, but firm. You really don't have to be rude. Another tip for how to say no in relationships is to say no, but offer an alternative. So a lot of times people are looking for help or assistance and they may not take no very well. So sometimes you can gauge the situation and maybe there's some help that you can offer, or you can steer someone in the right direction. So I may not be able to help, but I know someone that might. Or I might not be able to help, but here's something you can look into that can kind of resolve the situation that you're talking about. It's a way to be helpful. Now, I would caution you here because sometimes if you're not careful, while trying to offer an alternative, you may talk yourself into being the alternative, or you may talk yourself into actually saying yes to the project or the request that you said no to in the first place. So when you give an alternative, make sure that it's actually an alternative and stop short, right? Allow them to do some of the legwork and some of the work themselves. Don't overextend yourself, but at least give them enough that they know where to find the answer if you're not going to be able to give them the answer. Now, the last tip on how to say no is just to remember that saying no has a two-prong or a two-part positive effect. Has a positive effect on you, and it really has a positive effect on the other person as well. Now let's talk about the other person first. Now the big thing here is, if you remember in my story, when I was saying yes to people because I felt bad or I didn't want to disappoint them, or I thought maybe no one else would say yes, then a lot of the times when I didn't follow through, or when I didn't give it my all because I just couldn't and I was just stretched too thin, the other person ended up disappointed anyway. And sometimes those people who were honest with me would actually say, well, why did you say yes if you knew you couldn't do it? And it never occurred to me that I should have just said no. And so that really got me thinking about the importance of saying no. So when you say no, it helps the other person because they will actually be able to go out there and find someone who can genuinely, sincerely say yes, so has the ability and the desire to say yes. So sometimes you have the desire to say yes, but you don't have the ability to say yes because you just don't have the time. So why not allow that person to go out and find someone who not only has the desire, but has the time to do it as well. Now, how does saying no help you? If you're saying yes to things you really don't want to do, it causes an internal struggle, and that causes stress and anxiety. all things that negatively react on your body. So you really don't want to be doing things that you really don't want to do, because then it causes that internal conflict. The other thing is, if you say yes to the things that you really can and want to do, and you say no to those things that you really cannot and don't want to do, then it allows you to focus your energy on the things you do. And you'll actually do a better job when you commit to something. The other benefit to yourself when you learn to say no in relationships is that it really does help to strengthen your mind and build your resolve. Now, resolve and the strengthening of the mind is so important in so many aspects when we talk about taking our lives to the next level and personal development in general. Because strengthening the mind really is the beginning and the basis for building willpower. And willpower and resolve are really two important things that help you to do what is necessary to change your life dramatically and to take your life to the next level. It'll help you in negotiation. It will help you in your friendships. It will help you in your relationships. Just imagine not getting pushed into doing things you really don't want to do. Saying no may look different in different situations and for different people. And sometimes no will just be no, and you will directly just say no. And other times you'll say it a little gently, or you'll say it more indirectly, but it will still be a firm no. So I hope this topic was really helpful for you all in starting to think about how to develop your personal mindset and help take your life to the next level. I look forward to bringing you a lot more of these videos. If you made it to this point in this video, thank you for watching. If you're new to this channel or just haven't yet subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon to be notified when I post new videos. And I will see you next time on Renaissance Life TV. Cheers.